Today, I'm out here to prove that wildlife photography is more about the user than the gear, and to put my creativity to the test. And for that, I bought the cheapest camera available on Amazon. The other day, I was thinking to myself, what if I tried to do wildlife photography with absolutely the cheapest camera available to buy? So I went on Amazon and bought the cheapest point-and-shoot camera possible for a whopping $36. Today, I'm out at a regional park trying my best to make some sort of art in just a single morning with this god-awful camera. In wildlife photography, we put a lot of emphasis on the gear that we use. And while I am 100% a believer in good gear helps to get a better shot, we sometimes forget that two of the most fundamental aspects of our craft have nothing to do with the gear that we use. Number one, our creativity comes from our ability to imagine a scene and capture it uniquely. And number two, our knowledge of subjects, where they'll be and how to capture them best is essential as well. So today I've put myself in this location where I know it's really easy to get shots of birds and get up close with them due to the limitations in my gear. And hopefully I'll be able to use an extra dose of creativity to get something somewhat good. As the sun was rising, I worked to find any decent angles I possibly could, but it was really tricky. Being at such a wide focal length without any extra camera details to crop in with, I had to find ways to make the photo as is with no adjustments. And beyond that, the dynamic range on this camera was horrible, making it pretty unrealistic to capture any sort of varying light in an image. I'll tell you what, it is really hard to get shots when this camera decides to turn off every 3 minutes. I mean, I'm right in the moment where the goose is walking into the perfect position. So bad camera gear definitely can make your wildlife photography a lot harder, that's for sure. Even with mallards as close up as these, I couldn't recover any of the details in the highlights or shadows to do anything good with the image, not to mention a complete lack in depth of field. But after 45 minutes and feeling like giving up, I finally found a perfect angle to use this camera on. I think what's going to be really exciting is this is actually one of the first places I ever went when I started getting back into bird photography in the United States. And at the time I had much better gear than this camera right here, but I still took some pretty bad shots back in the day. So hopefully what I'm trying to do today is kind of prove that in a way my talent over the years and my experience has allowed me to get maybe even better photos than how I was able to as a beginner with much better gear than this. The angle I was looking at used backlighting from the sun to accent the shadows in front of me and the geese in the distance. Allowing for more foreground space in the shadows allowed for the frame to be simplified into a small-in frame. And with the geese kicking up dust in the background, charging at each other and being territorial, I think this image worked pretty well. If you haven't heard already, I just launched my biggest event of the year that I put on. The 2024 Wildlife Photography Competition is now open for you guys to submit your images to and win up to $1,000 in cash. About 3 years ago, I had this idea to create a wildlife photography competition in which you guys, the audience, could watch as judges judged your photos live in real time here on YouTube. This year, we've upped the ante to include a $1,000 in cash grand prize and $500 cash first place prizes for our main 4 categories, as well as a new photographers category for beginners and a popular vote that will take place live during the ceremony. If you guys want to enter your images before the deadline, you can check out the link in the description below to the website to enter your images. I think what I'm going to do is there's this kind of hole in the leaf that the insect has bit. I'm just going to take this one leaf here, and I got a somewhat creative shot over here. I might try to use it in some future shots. See if I can use it to pull up an image. Surprisingly, this technique worked really well when I was so limited on my options otherwise, and I pulled out another decent image that I liked. I walked over towards the creek running through the park to see if I could capture the mallards that hang out by the park there. But unfortunately, all the lighting dynamics just wound up being too harsh, and I couldn't get any shots that I liked.
So now that we've got a few shots, it's a start, but I'd like to improve on it even a little bit more. So what I'm gonna do is pull it up and have some fun with Luminar Neo in post-processing, who is the sponsor of today's video, and try to spice it up a little bit and add some creativity to it.
So I've got 2 images pulled up on Luminar Neo here, and the goal is gonna be to make these images look just so much better because of kind of the poor quality of this camera largely, but still make them look very, very natural, as I don't want to make them look fake or anything like that, even though they will be very heavily manipulated, and I would disclaim that if I were to post these up. So let's start off with this image that's more simple of the Canada geese here. And what I'm going to do to start here is I am going to go to Relight. And this leaf was really, really cool that I was able to capture in this image. And really the only thing that can make an image like this work, Canada goose kind of sticking out there. But I feel like it's a little flat because the whole image is just really encompassed by that leaf. So what I'm gonna do is go to Relight, bring down the brightness near. And what that's doing is you can notice that it's kind of providing a little bit of shadow and gradient across this leaf as it kind of progresses through the frame, which just gives a little bit of dynamic to the foreground that we're kind of working with here. Now let's go down to super contrast. And what else I liked about this image was this rim light here on that little kind of bitten gap in the leaf was really, really nice. Really kind of the highlight of the image almost for me, if you will. But because of the poor quality of this camera, it was really, really rough in trying to get that kind of full dynamic range and the highlight exposure out of that. And the contrast in those highlights. So if we go to super contrast, we can just focus on those highlights right there. And now you'll notice that we're getting so much more color in kind of that rim light on the leaf right there. And we kind of get that rainbow look in it that I really, really like about it in the first place. Before and after. And finally, because this image is shot with a bad camera, I'm gonna go to Noiseless AI and I'm gonna go to low, and that helps take out some of the noise on this image. Now let's go back to a more complex image though. This was probably my favorite image I was able to take of the day. I really like how this image, you kind of have the dust from the geese kind of being feisty and territorial with each other, being thrown up. So you kind of get an element of atmosphere here. The backlighting is beautiful, and kind of the shadows being casted across the ground is really, really nice. We are going to go to Sky AI. And we're gonna replace this sky back here. Let's go, have a bunch of different types of skies you can replace. I'm gonna go to sunset, and it kind of gives, while it's still pretty naturally blown out, it gives a little bit of just detail and color in the sky. You can adjust the sky orientation. So actually we're gonna bring up the sun just a little bit in that sky replaced image. Then we're gonna change the horizontal positioning to where it's off to the side just a little bit more, like that. It's looking pretty nice. So we got before and after. Then we're gonna go to sun rays. And what this is gonna do is really accentuate that lighting that I'm really wanting to accent, because that's what's selling this image, is the beautiful kind of backlighting that we have behind these Canada geese and the scene taking place. So we're gonna go to sun rays. I'm gonna place the sun center, probably somewhere about there. Then I'm gonna bring up the amount to start out with. And you can see we're now getting some sun rays in this image, which are pretty dang cool. I'm gonna decrease a little bit of the overall look. Increase a little bit of the length right there. Decrease the penetration a little bit to make it just a little bit more on the defined sun rays themselves. Now we're gonna go to sun settings. We're gonna bring down the glow amount. That way the sun itself, because you can see in that top corner, it's kind of getting the geese a little bit blurred out too much. Don't want that. Sun radius, sun glow radius. Decrease that a little bit. It's looking better. Now we're gonna go to the rays setting. And let's increase the number of rays. That way they feel a little bit more prominent. Something like that. Let's randomize it a little bit. That kind of looks nice. You get kind of a gap with the Canada geese right there, or that Canada goose specifically, and then one right here. Kind of looks like the rays are almost coming around it, which is nice. And we're gonna decrease the penetration just a little bit. And maybe decrease the amount a little bit, fine tune that. So overall, it's looking pretty good. You can see how much those sun rays add to the dynamic of this image. And man, that looks really, really nice. So finally, as a final touch, we're gonna go back to our relight tool, just like before. I'm gonna bring down the brightness, maybe to about there. Increase the depth a little. And now we're getting even more depth and kind of gradient in that image. The nearer parts seem like they're really getting darker. The sun's really just hitting those bright parts in the back part of the image. It's kind of getting dark as it gets near us as the viewer. And I think that adds a lot of really kind of a cool and artistic look to this image that still feels very, very natural. So if you want to purchase Luminar Neo, you can use my link in the description below to receive 10% off your purchase. Ultimately, the purpose of this video was kind of to show that while gear clearly does matter, it's not everything. And no matter what kind of gear you have, if you're creative enough, you can still make art that looks good. I mean, literally, you couldn't have gotten any worse of gear than what I used. So the proof is there. And this video also goes to show that editing is really quite everything, and that editing an image well is super important. Stay inspired and get out into nature with whatever you have. Thanks for watching. If you want to enter the photo competition I'm hosting for $5,000 worth of prizes, check out the link in the description below.